All right, so this is just a wide shot. I thought I'd do a studio tour this morning, at least a little bit of one anyway, and just sort of take you through what my the current incarnation of my studio looks like. So you can see where I build things and make things and produce things and all that sort of business. So just as a nice wide establishing shot, you can see there are two basic desks on the wall over there. The right hand side with that line of monitors down it, that is what I jokingly call my digital desk, and the lower desk on the left hand side is what I jokingly refer to as my analog desk. And roughly speaking, those two things, those two categorizations are accurate. But as you'll soon see, though, I try not to keep that rigidly in log. It's more of a conceptual difference. I'm going to take you guys in for a little bit closer look, show you what's there, and then I'm going to show you what the next phase of building this thing actually looks like. Rolling, part 2, syncing. So this is the right-hand digital desk. You can see there's two pairs of monitors here. There's a pair on the left, and then there's a larger pair on the right. The right-hand pair is the setup for my large editing computer and or an auxiliary setup when I work from home off a work computer. So, and I can show you this in a little bit, down to the right down here, you can just catch the edge of a rack mount. It doesn't look like there's a ton in it. A lot of the stuff is actually on the back end side. But that right there is an Xserve. And that's what I do my heavy editing on when I'm working on footage. And that's patched into those two monitors that are mounted on a dual monitor stand. And then over here is the second pair of monitors mounted on a dual monitor stand. Yeah, I wouldn't mind upgrading these. Yeah, I'm always looking for more monitor space, but those two, these two here, this guy and this guy, are actually my regular run-of-the-mill daily driver computers. And those are both patched into, let's see if I can get you a shot, that guy right there, that little silver box. That is an older Apple Mac Mini. It's been upgraded a little bit with a bit more RAM and a SSD drive in it, which makes it pretty snappy. The only thing it really has trouble with in daily driving is some websites with lots of JavaScript and ads can really sort of hobble it. I'm running Ghosterly on it right now to reduce that sort of clutter, but I'm about to build, I have coming from Adafruit, I have a Raspberry Pi hole box that's going to patch into the network here and eliminate a bunch of that junk via DNS. And that will be better. So that's coming soon. And I look forward to that. Anyway, that's the daily driver. The keyboard in front of it. Here, we'll see if we can slide forward on a bit of a terrible dolly shot here. There we go. All right, let's look at control surfaces. And let's see if we could pull focus just yeah, about like that. Okay, so that is a mechanical keyboard with a custom keycap set that's mostly set up for Final Cut. That is a Behringer audio mixing board, and that runs audio sources from all of the computers plus some other things that are over here, and lets me patch them either all through that pair of headphones that's sitting over here, these lovely camo looking guys, or I have a set of speakers and an NAD receiver that they run through. There's a old generation iPad here that's either running as a media setup or it's being used as a tertiary monitor wirelessly, which is kind of useful. I have another one around someplace. I just don't have a stand to put it on. And then littering the desk over there on this hand side are sort of like the oddball ends and pieces of my production work. So like, here's my cell phone that I'm not using at the moment. Here's battery packs for the camera I'm using that I'm going to need shortly if I'm to believe this display. GoPro Session, a Canon lens. Back there is a Raspberry Pi that's on our home network. That one is set up as a RetroPie, which emulates old school games for my kids to play, and all of that. Down below, down here, there's a couple rack mount units that have some older rack gear in them. All of that is going to get consolidated into a single large rack mount unit. I'm going to show you drawings for that in a little bit. That'll put all of the rack gear sort of in one place and get it out of the way. So that keyboard, mouse, and that sort of weird lone old monitor over there, that's all mostly just set up for playing Nintendo, if I'm honest. We're going to move you guys over to the soft desk, the analog desk over here, and then we'll show you some storage stuff and then what the future plans are for this. So let's get you over here. All right. So this is the analog desk. So cutting mat, space for your Sharpies and your scissors, and your printer, scanner, copier. And then as you move up through this stuff over here, you've got glue and pens and inks. And moving up, you got your tape collections and sharps. And moving up some more, we've got more tapes and more odds and ends and old notebook storage. And then you can come across all these bins. Here you've got, bins for webbing, you've got bins for prototyping, for various projects that are being worked on or have been worked on. And then all the way across this way, we've got some reference books and speakers and notebook storage and all that sort of business. But this down here is my analog desk. So if I'm doing if I'm building zines, or if I am building bags, or repairing clothing, or altering things, or whatever it is, if I'm sewing or typing or gluing or any of that sort of analog fun stuff, that's where that happens. Now the storage for a lot of that stuff lives in this two-part unit here. And this guy is modeled, roughly speaking, off a Tom Sachs Studio Storage Unit, Modular Studio Storage Unit, Studio Modular Unit, SMU, whatever. So basically, there used to be one of these. There are now two of them. So that's got shelves that hold either things like a sewing machine or a typewriter. It's a little too narrow. This is a vinyl plotter that I got up here. That doesn't quite fit in it, but it does fit on it nicely. We've got some room for more reference book storage, and tripods and some odds and ends that need to be repaired, and some grip gear that's hanging around. And then all of these units here, these boxes, let's see if we can get better focus. All of these boxes here are labeled by purpose. So this top guy here is, for instance, full of adhesives, everything you need adhesive wise. So all your glues, all your mixing, all your application, all your brushes. This guy's sewing. This guy down here is computer I/O stuff. Down here is all camera mount hardware. So that's all tripod heads and mounting plates and GoPro brackets, and screws and bolts and all that stuff. Down here, these three are all full of electrics. So prototyping, buttons, switches, relays, anything like that. This is my lovely antique typewriter, and this is a set of speakers that's on the verge of getting repaired perpetually. I've had them for years now. But what are you gonna do? I'm gonna reset up here, and then we're gonna show you what comes next for this space. Alright, we've already briefly looked at this rack, and we've determined that that is an Xserve that I use for video editing. Up on top here is an NAD receiver. That is a chip. It's like an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi, but a little bit different. Stack of hard drives, that is a Synology NAS that does a bunch of backup and sort of mass media storage. And then back behind it in that giant god-awful tangle of wires is network management and some audio power management and a bunch of other odds and ends there. And then what you can't see, because this rack is full depth and I've got stuff on the other end, there's a bunch more audio gear and storage, hard to storage space back there. There's also just off to the right here, this is all prepped, there's a bin. That bin is full of gear that needs to get mounted, and then as I showed you guys before, there's a couple of these units over here that are pretty full of this stuff. So I've got like vintage tape deck and dual deck CD players and controllers and network interfaces, and then way back there you can barely see in those hard cases there's turntables and mixing boards, and I mean there's quite a bit of gear down here that could use a decent home. So this rack unit, which is from the early 80s, actually, it used to house a research and development computer. This guy is going to go get retired finally, and I'm building in this exact same spot where this is. You'll see the wall up behind it is all open up in here. A 50 inch tall rack unit, about 29 units tall, that is going to house, it's going to be full depth like this guy, but it's going to house all of that stuff all in one place, nice and organized. If you look on top of this giant speaker stack with this other random old monitor up there, that is actually a switchable rack mount power supply. So I'll be able to turn things on and off in units incrementally. So we'll have, if I just want the audio section on, or just want the network section on, the storage section on, or whatever, I'll be able to sort of control each of those portions of it. The Xserve that I have, I don't run on very often. I only turn it on when I'm using it, essentially, because it idles at 140 watts of power usage. Just sitting there, and then flat out it'll run, I think, 750 watts of power drain, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like you will notice that on a power bill. Never mind the noise. Oh god, the noise. Listen, it's lovely. I got it for super cheap. It's been upgraded, so it's running USB 3. It's running a nicer, more advanced video card, and it's been hacked a little bit so that it's running system 10.11.6. It'll probably run 12 and maybe 13. Apple doesn't want you to be able to run any of those, but that's mostly because of it's mostly because of a video card incompatibility. So if you deal with the video card and are willing to modify like a couple of tiny settings in there, it will boot just fine into those newer OSs. And like I said, for my purposes editing, it has enough horsepower. It's a dual quad core 3 gigahertz Xenon setup with 16 gig of RAM. Like it actually still has the juice to do the stuff, even though the thing is oh god, almost 10 years old. That's nuts. Anywho, let me show you. I'm gonna take you over, and we'll take a look at what the rack mount in theory is going to look like when it's done. So I need to get very bit closer, it looks like. Alright, what do we got? Let's go. That looks like it's about dead focus there. Alright, so I'm going to show you in this sketch here sort of where we're at. So this, hang on, there you go. This is a rough sketch of what this rack mount's going to look like here. So you can see I've got sort of separated. I've got server and NAS and some various Raspberry Pis, and then a whole section here of just hard disks, because there are quite a few external drives that are going into it. I've got a media section here that's going to contain a VCR plus some digital tuners and some A to D, D to A conversion boxes for video. I've got a whole tape section, and then CD, and then I've got some tuners and amplifiers and effects units that are going to go all down the bottom here. So it's sort of going to be from some sort of here, halfway down is all audio video stuff, and then the rest of the way up is all going to be network, storage, computer-based stuff. Which A, will look nice and be cleaner, and B, will make it less so I have to route wires over hell's half acres. That entire box is going to get run, built out of the same setup that I've built the rest of this out of. So this is mostly birch and maple. So this entire rack unit, the case of it is going to be birch and maple in the same finish as the shelves and desks that are down here. I have the rack mount rails. It's running 28 or 29U front rails, and then I got some shorter ones in the back so I could tuck some stuff in the back and hide it back there. But it should look more like a piece of furniture, and it will house all that gear in one spot, all the power management, all the networking, all that stuff. So I'll be able to run a single line of network to it. Hopefully, roughly speaking, a single or double line with a power to it, and then audio to and from it, because I like to have a physical control switch on the desk for that stuff. Yeah, it should just make things a lot cleaner and a lot less cluttered, and a lot sort of easier for me to follow. Yeah. Oh, it occurs to me, one more sort of weird thing that I've done that you might consider doing if you're running a setup like this, although I can't imagine many of you are, if I'm honest. So this is back towards my main desk here, and so here we are. That's my keyboard, right, with the iPad. That's the physical control surface for my audio interface. I love physical buttons over digital interfaces for stuff like this. And then there's the Mac Mini, and then if you look right up on top of the Mac Mini, there's this little black box. Looks like a USB hub. Is in fact a USB hub, but what's neat about this is you've got your USB ports on this side, and then power going back here, because it's powered. And then you've got this and this coming out this side. These are two separate USB outs, essentially. So with this button here, I can toggle this keyboard, well, basically anything plugged into here, which in this case is this keyboard and this mouse and a couple other bits and bobs over here, and can make them either talk to that computer or to the Xserve that's in the rack. So, you know, I'm never really running. I mean, I'm running both at the same time when I'm using them, but I can't be in two places at once. And because I really do like this this keyboard quite a lot, and you know, this mouse is okay, I guess. It lets me, that little jam there lets me bounce the keyboard and mouse between the two computers really easily. I've got this nice continuous desk, so sliding stuff around, I sort of just leave it in the middle when I'm doing that. And I can bounce between the two computers without changing my interfaces to them, which is kind of nice. So no matter what I'm doing over here, that keyboard, that mouse, that audio board control volume and everything else I need between those two computers, which is kind of nice. Recording and syncing. Alright, just to actually get me in front of the camera here, Mike. Thanks for this overly long-winded tour of my current studio. There's more around the corner I'll show you at some point when I get that sort of dealt with, but the next step is to get the rack mount built and the wiring and everything else cleaned up and get a bunch of the junk that's down here sort of out of the way, and that'll let me deal with this sort of horror show that you can't see over here of prep, most of which is like prepped space for that, and others is just mass storage stuff that needs to get finally parked where it will go. But once that's done, this whole space will be opened up and nice, and it'll be an even more usable space. It's already been a massive improvement over what it's been before. But anyway, thanks for a overly long, overly detailed tour of the current incarnation of my studio. And I'm going to try to get more videos out on the regular, but I keep getting sick and the weather keeps getting bad, so we'll see. Anyway,